As a young teenager, I've always had this idea of love that it's magical. It's this spiritual thing that connects human beings together. It sounded like this beautiful thing. And I really wanted to know what it felt like to love someone and be loved. I've been suffering from loneliness for years, and it has just become worse and worse. It all started when I was 15. I developed my very first serious crush on a girl I really liked. I loved her so much. I was extremely obsessed with her. I used to stalk all her social media. I was head over heels in love with her. We barely talked. I didn't know how to approach her back then. When her birthday came, I became really depressed. I didn't know how to get in contact with her. Or not how, but I simply didn't have the courage to do so at all. I was afraid of seeming like a creep. I remember making a drawing of her profile picture at the time, and after about 2 weeks from her birthday, I decided to just send her a happy birthday message and show her the drawing I drew of her. And she basically got the whole idea that I liked her, and indirectly rejected me by basically saying that I'm like her brother. I stayed obsessed with her for a longer time, until another girl I got in contact with in one of my classes. She was the one who approached me. We messaged each other, and we slowly got closer and closer. I slowly got attached to her more and more, and I fell in love with her. It was obvious back then that she didn't like me back. She was rather playing around. We stayed in this imaginary relationship, more of a situationship, until I decided to end it, since she hurt me in many ways. We didn't have aligned goals or morals. I fell in love with a hoe, basically. I just didn't know better back then. I was just so happy someone loved me back and gave me attention. I was extremely hurt after ending it, but I had to, since she wasn't the one for me. At that point in my life, I looked at love as this bad thing that I needed, but also hated. I looked at it as a drug that made you do insane, unreasonable things. I slowly realized that soulmates aren't a thing, and love isn't this magical thing I thought it would be. It was this drug that entered your system that later would turn into poison with severe withdrawal symptoms. I kept missing this girl that I fell in love with for a really long while. She kept on texting me back from time to time, which really did interrupt the healing process really bad. Until we got into a really bad fight, and that fight contained really hurtful words. We kept throwing hurtful words back and forth at each other, and from there, we never spoke ever again. I was hurt really bad. Really bad. But I continued my life. I was extremely lonely. Really lonely. I knew my loneliness was a really bad problem, and I didn't know how to fix it. There is this saying that said, "Don't drink poison because you are thirsty." But I didn't know how to get rid of the thirst. I don't know what may be the underlying reasoning to my constant feeling of loneliness, and I wish I was able to fix it. This loneliness made me develop a severely bad corn and masturbation addiction. It was one of my only ways to cope. After I would release, I would hug a pillow and just cry. Loneliness is this feeling that slowly grows and grows, and it slowly drowns you. Fast forward to a year down the line. I would consider myself more mature at the time since I was 18. I met another girl in my uni. How we met. She randomly texted me and asked me to be friends. I eventually got to know her. We got closer, and it slowly turned into a really obvious situationship. At the very least, that's what it seemed to me. She was another hoe. But this time, I was aware that she was a hoe. But I was attached to her. It's I was lonely. I want to be with her. In her presence. It made me feel so happy in her presence. We used to go to uni together every time. We never touched each other or anything. But her presence and her closeness to me made me feel so good. I love being in her presence a lot. Like a lot. Deep down I knew that it won't last. But I loved everything I felt with her. I wasn't in love. I was just attached. She used to have really bad habits, but I was really attached to her. I really wanted to attempt to change her. I would always tell her to stop smoking, and to stop doing 2 parties. I would always tell her that we are medical students, and studying is a big priority for us, and she should prioritize her studies. Yes, all what I told her was just an advice. Deep down I wanted her to change so I can be with her. After about 2 months, as I expected, she slowly started ignoring my messages. At that point I knew she wasn't interested in me anymore, and honestly, it was a blessing in disguise. It wasn't gonna work out anyways, but that hurt really bad. Couldn't go to uni anymore without seeing all the places we used to be together at and be hurt. Her presence was amazing, but her absence was extremely poisonous. I would always have to hold tears walking back home alone rather than being with her. It took me a few months to get over her, and from that point onwards, I decided to focus on myself, and I did. I started going to the gym, lost the weight, and now in shape. I was overweight, and started to get myself together. However, while I was doing all that, I won't lie, I was battling loneliness really bad. I was still extremely lonely. I just decided to work on myself despite that loneliness. I still was dealing with my addiction. It was the only way I can escape this feeling, and not feel like I'm drowning in it. When this year started, I decided to try and stop my masturbation addiction. And when I attempted to stop, I was reminded very quickly the reason why I was addicted in the first place. Me stopping led me to experience severe depression and extreme loneliness like I've never experienced before. Made it to 7 days without doing it, and then relapsed. At that point, I was desperate for a serious long-term relationship, although I am a 19-year-old medical student, and almost of people would always say, focus on yourself and your future, but I just found deal with this loneliness anymore. So I decided for the first time to actually attempt to find love. I downloaded every dating app known to man, and although I never ever thought I would resort to dating apps, but I did. Released how shit dating apps were. I also tried to post here on Reddit. I made a few female friendships through Reddit, which slowly died. I kept trying for about 3 months with no success. A part of me feels that maybe me not being successful is a blessing in disguise. Beck, maybe I'm not ready for a relationship. But a part of me can't bear the feeling of the heartache I feel every day from the amount of loneliness I drown in on a daily basis. I appear strong and fine in front of everyone I know. Everyone thinks that I'm this strong athletic man that has strong mental fortitude and doesn't fall down. People on the outside think that I'm focusing on myself and that I'm too busy focusing on my future to be in a relationship now. But that's away from the truth. No one really know. That is what I like to show, Beck. I don't want anyone to know that I'm weak. But I do suffer on a daily basis. No one knows. And I'm not planning to let anyone know. One of the main reasons I'm writing this post is to always announce the fact that I gave up on love. Whatever that substance is. Maybe I'm not meant to feel it. All I've felt is pain and suffering. I think maybe it's better I focus on my future. I will still try to fix my life and loneliness. Maybe loneliness has won this time. People usually write stories where the light wins over the dark. But this isn't the case. My purpose for writing this isn't really to seek empathy, but to vent, make an agreeing with myself that I'll be leaving this whole dating scene and love aside, and just accept it.